We are in the thick of 2025, and so far, not a lot of major rebrands. Sure, we saw Walmart earlier this year, but there hasn't been anything big outside of that. In January, we looked at 5 companies that I'd like to see rebrand in 2025, and if you haven't seen that video, please go check that one out first. The link is in the description. Today, we're going to take a look at 5 more companies that need to rebrand in 2025. I got 5 major companies here for you today. Stay tuned until number 5. That's where things are going to get a little interesting. But before we get into it, be sure to support the show by giving this episode a like, leaving a comment, and of course, by subscribing. This is Ziggy the Designer, the show where we talk about the world of graphic design and the people who make it move. Design is all around us, so we might as well talk about it. So the first brand that I feel needs a rebrand in 2025 is everyone's favorite video call app, and that's Zoom. My first interaction with Zoom came in college, right as the COVID-19 pandemic was heating up here in the United States. We all switched to remote learning, and Zoom was our app of choice. And then I graduated, right? I got my first design job, and Zoom was our app of choice there too. Now, cut to 2025, where I've grown in my design career, right? I've gained experience at different workplaces, and now I'm not just using Zoom, right? I'm using Microsoft Teams, I'm using Google Workspace, I've even used WebEx and Zoho. Point is, Zoom doesn't own the video conference space like it used to, and they are in need of something to get that authority back. So what is it? Well, the Zoom visual identity is already really strong. I don't think we touch that here. It has a strong reputation. I think it's hard to move away from that blue, and I think it's hard to move away from that Zoom logo that we all know and love. I don't think the solution here is a full, visual identity change, much like the ones we talk about on the show. Rather, I think this rebrand comes in the form of a new tone of voice and a new ad campaign, much like we saw Collins do with Bose back in 2024. Bose, they kept their logo, right? But they introduced a new slogan, a new art style, and a new ad campaign to roll everything out. If I'm Zoom, right? I'm leaning into that message of, when crap hit the fan, you came to us. When you can't see your loved ones in person, when you can't go to your schools, when you can't go to your offices, you turn to Zoom. It's a message that gives the product authority and legitimacy while also giving it some prestige over its competitors. Because it's true, right? It's like a project I'm working on right now. I'm based in Chicago, but the group I'm working with is based out of North Carolina. Every meeting we've taken has been over Zoom. Zoom is the go-to platform here. So Zoom, show us that confidence. Show us that authority. Don't be afraid to talk big here. The next company loves getting you from place to place, and that is Southwest Airlines. Now, out of all the companies on the list today, I feel like this one is the most likely to happen. Southwest has gone through a lot of changes in the past year, and as someone who works in aviation, I can tell you that we're all keeping a close eye on Southwest. Now, if you don't know, Southwest was essentially taken over by Elliott Management, a private equity firm. And if you don't know about private equity, the goal of a private equity firm is to essentially go into a company, make it as profitable as possible, and make it as valuable as possible, and then sell it. And what Elliott has done to achieve that with Southwest is they've gotten rid of Southwest's signature offerings. They've gotten rid of, 2 checked bags, fly for free, and no assigned seats. This is where other airlines make their money, right? Because they do charge for checked bags. They do charge for assigned seats and different cabins. Southwest wasn't doing that, and that has angered a lot of Southwest loyalists. I mean, those were the reasons why they flew with Southwest over other airlines. So to pull the situation back in, to gain control of the situation, Southwest has added the ad agency giant, Leo Burnett, to their creative agency roster. So what this tells me is that Southwest knows that they've angered their customers. Knowing Southwest and knowing Leo Burnett, what we're probably going to get is a new ad campaign that is cinematic, right? That really tugs at the heartstrings, right? That's what Leo Burnett is best at. Now, will this lead to a rebrand? Now, many people in finance and aviation believe that Southwest is being set up for acquisition. And because of that, many people might not agree with what I'm about to say, but I do feel like a rebrand is in order here because, who says that at the end of all of this, Southwest needs to be acquired by another airline, right? What a rebrand will do for Southwest is catch it up to speed with all of the changes that it's been going through. Southwest's foundation as a budget airline just isn't there anymore. You can't go out and compete with Delta. You can't go out and compete with American, especially with United, looking like a budget airline. So my message to Southwest is if you want to operate like a legacy carrier, which is exactly what they're trying to do here, then you got to look like a legacy carrier too. You can't have the Bugatti sitting in the trailer park, Southwest. Next is the company that actually inspired this channel, and that is ESPN. If you don't know ESPN, they are a sports media giant, right? They do television, they do editorial, anything with sports media, they're doing it. The thing with ESPN, though, is that they've been having some trouble, right? ESPN has long been synonymous with sports broadcasting, but we're in a world where broadcasting isn't as relevant anymore. We're in a world where digital is king and digital is always changing. With competition from different video platforms and sports channels, ESPN's identity as the go-to hub for sports just, isn't there. Think of how many sports channels there are here on YouTube, right? These channels are telling very deep stories. They're getting very into the landscape of the sports that they cover. Whereas ESPN, their stories are beginning to feel a little diluted. And to ESPN's credit, right, they are trying new things. They are trying different things, right? They're bringing in sports media outsiders like Pat McAfee, who, despite me being a fan of Pat and the Boys, he's brought some unnecessary drama to the network. And on top of that, ESPN has also let go of very talented broadcasters like Robert Griffin III, Jeff Van Gundy, and Sam Ponder, who were ESPN stalwarts, right? So with so many different moves and changes at ESPN, there's this feeling that they don't really know what they're doing. And in the face of adversity coming from streaming services, from different podcasts, and from even here on YouTube, they're floundering. A rebrand here could really emphasize ESPN's history and leadership in sports storytelling while adapting their network to modern viewers, and especially younger viewers who really lean towards that more curated, more niche and interactive content. A new visual identity and especially a new digital strategy could bring new life into ESPN, positioning it as a dynamic, forward-thinking brand in this ever-changing media landscape. Next up, we have the tech icon Intel. I feel like Intel and ESPN at their core are in similar situations here. They are both in fields that have changed a lot in the last decade, and they are now seen as the old guys in the room. 10 years ago, we're not having this conversation about Intel, but the fact of the matter is that Intel is in a room with the likes of NVIDIA and AMD, and they have not only outgrown Intel, but they have out-innovated Intel. So if I'm Intel, I'm shifting the brand to really communicate this idea of the future, right? I'm bringing in gradients. I'm bringing in abstract logo design. I'm bringing in minimalistic illustrations, right? Really positioning Intel as a brand that has an appetite for risk, that has an appetite to push the boundaries a little here, because the reputation of being the stable chip maker isn't doing them any favors right now. If you've reached this part of the video, thank you. It means a lot to me that you're here. If you're into the world of graphic design and getting into the nitty-gritty of this industry, go ahead and subscribe to the channel here. There's a lot more content coming about brand design. There's a lot more content coming about, the top creative agencies, and even interviews with leaders in the field. And in return, I will give you the 5th company I feel needs to rebrand in 2025. This is where it gets interesting. That company is Apple. Before you pelt me in the comments, let me explain. Yes, Apple is a design leader. And yes, they were just named the Cannes Lions Creative Marketer of the Year. I'm not taking any of that away from them. But as me, right? Me as an Apple fan, right? You see my MacBook here. Here's my iPhone. Creatively, they've gotten complacent, right? Creatively, they've gotten stale. They aren't, necessarily the design authority that they once were. I mean, these aren't like the Johnny Ive days where product announcements were this big design event, right? I still remember Apple's iOS 7 launch that set the stage for their visual identity throughout the 2010s. And now we're halfway through the 2020s, and it's almost as if we're getting nothing from the brand on all fronts, right? I haven't seen an interesting ad from Apple since their Notes commercials promoting the AirPods. That was back in 2017. And let's not kid ourselves, right? We've hardly gotten anything new on the product design front too since the launch of the iPhone X. Also, back in 2017. Apple is coming off as a brand that is tired, that is getting a little too comfortable, right? They're your friend that let themselves go after they got into a stable relationship, right after work. They aren't going to the gym anymore. They're sitting on the couch, eating chips and playing Fortnite. I mean, are we not worried about Apple here? Let me look at this chart, mapping their revenue. They're in a plateau. Apple, give yourself a makeover. Show us that you're not the lazy friend who sits on the couch. Show us that you still have some creative authority here. Now you can pelt me in the comments. But what companies do you think need to rebrand? Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree with my list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That's all I have for you. Be sure to give this episode a like, subscribe, and share. I've been Ziggy the Designer. If there are 2 things you need to know about me, it's that 1, I love design, and 2, I'm very opinionated. I'll talk with y'all later. Bye-bye.